I must say, thanks, Trevor, for holding the fort on that end. We are still at the home of the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi. And of course, you probably know by now that he served in two branches of government, in the judiciary and in the legislative as well. But he has ambitions to serve in the other arm, the executive, and we'll be getting to that and his agenda in just a bit. But I want us to focus for just a little bit on his performance as the Speaker of the National Assembly. And of course, thank you again for staying with us, Mr. Speaker. You're a leader of an independent arm of government called the legislature. Yeah. What's your assessment of Parliament's ability to exercise the principle of separation of powers?
Well, let me say that, like happens the world over, the executive has a very interesting nexus with the legislature, the world over, because those who eventually lead the executive, either by way of either prime minister or as presidents, they also have, they are connected to the political parties that sponsor them. And those parties have membership in the houses of parliament. And therefore, when you talk about separation of powers, sometimes it gets a bit blunt, because those in the executive have made pledges to the electorate. And those pledges would involve, among others, the kind of budgets that they will allocate to various programs. They have certain policies that they may wish to transform into legislation so as to implement those programs. And therefore, it is something that not a lot of times gets a bit bland, especially in institutions where a legislature has what you may even call a supermajority, like in the case of Jubilee, because they're under such a huge majority.
It sounds like you're admitting this evening, Speaker, that you have struggled to see the separation of power between the executive and the legislative in the term that you've been Speaker. In so many words.
I'm not struggling. In fact, I'm trying to explain it as best as I know how.
Okay.
Because yes, remember, the legislature will do its work to legislate, but the world over, most of that legislation emanates from the executive. So if it is good, do you go and do you reject it merely because you don't want to be seen to be agreeing with the executive? Certainly not.
Good by what measure? By the executive's measure or by the legislative's?
Whenever bills are brought into, even from the executive,
yes,
they are taken through processes. And that's why you see they are even amended by the members. The reason why they are amended is because the members, through engagement with other stakeholders and the public, they come to realize maybe what has come from the executive, you can't take it wholesale.
Okay.
And therefore, in the process of legislating, you introduce, even the members themselves introduce their own ideas into those bills, which eventually become acts of parliament.
And
therefore, even in budgeting,
yes,
the members will go through, various proposals to fund this, to fund the other, and that's why recently you had some monies were being removed by members themselves from this vote to another vote. Members saying this one is more deserving than the other. Mm-hmm. Of course, then there's that back and forth, with the executive now trying to explain, no, please, we need this because we need to implement this.
Okay.
But remember, that's what happens the world over.
And whilst it may be true, Honourable Speaker, that there are some bills that have no point of contention, the executive thinks it's a good idea and Parliament does as well. I want to take you back, for example, to the passage of the contentious national security laws back in 2014. I'm sure you still remember.
Yeah.
It's an event where you even suffered physical humiliation. An MP actually threw water, tried to pour water on you, if you remember those days. Yes. You battled through to pass laws that were later on declared unconstitutional by the High Court. And it is said that you had expressed instructions from the executive to make sure that those laws are passed.
Let me say this, Maura. Making laws is not a walk in the park. Now, particularly with regard to those ones, security laws of 2014, I had given members sufficient time and the committee so that any member who had proposals for amendments, they went and discussed with the committees. As you would recall, in the morning, it's not even me who was actually on the chair when the water was being poured. It's my deputy who was there. When they poured water on my deputy and became unruly, my deputy came to me and told her she was very scared. She was shaking. And some other members, let me not say they mentioned their names, came to me and told me, you know what, the best thing is to adjourn this thing, because there's going to be a lot of this is too much chaos. Without going anywhere, with those members and my deputy then, we started, I told them, let me tell you, if we allow this to be the way when people do not agree with something, that they will behave, and we adjourn, then we will never be able to do any work here.
Okay. Because
every time people don't agree with something, rather than organize themselves to vote against it, they will be causing chaos. And I say, no, it can't happen. It will not happen under my watch. There was nobody else who was there.
Okay.
The reason why I took that decision is because I had given all the members who had come with proposals an opportunity to go and sit with the committee and instructed the committee, please, so as to make sure that you do the process of winnowing. Listen to every proposal. And those which you are able to take on them as a committee. Those which you are not able to, allow the member to move them.
And I think you've made that quite clear. But let me take you back to my original question.
Now, let me tell you, there's a mistake. There's a mistake. I think, you know.
Then you'll tell me whether...
The way you asked the question,
yes,
there was a mistake. That you say that we pass laws which were eventually declared by the High Court.
Parts of them were declared unconstitutional.
No, you know, you said which were declared. Let me tell you, there are only 6 clauses which the High Court disagreed with. And because, you know, the laws are not mine. The laws, the Speaker has no vote. I don't vote. So it was for the members who are moving those bills to go and deal with them. The issue of the courts declaring sections of laws and constitutional, or, you know...
Which shows that Parliament did not play its oversight role.
It is Parliament.
Yes.
And remember, Parliament is not the Speaker. Parliament is not the Speaker, is me, and as long as members are able to show that we think on the balance of probability this is good, you allow them. Because the moment you, as a Speaker, you begin disallowing everything, you are falling into the realm of voting, which you are barred from specifically in the Constitution.
Okay, please answer my original question. Did you receive express instructions from the executive to make sure those laws are passed? You're on the record here.
There were no instructions that came to me, at least not to me. And let me tell you, when the executive has an issue, they don't talk to the Speaker. They go to the leader of majority. You know, that's a mistake people have always made. Because it is the leader of majority who will go to mobilize his troops together with his whip. It is not to talk for the executive to talk to the Speaker. What will the Speaker do? The Speaker is merely going to preside to say whether or not you have voted yes or no, and if there is a dispute, count the numbers. You know? So why would the executive even call the Speaker to do what? Ask the Speaker to vote in a way, or compel members? Or
the Speaker's duties really play a big role in how debate is conducted, in how voting happens, and who gets to speak.
Yeah,
who gets more time than the other. I mean,
exactly. Who gets to speak? When it comes to who votes, that is not the work of the Speaker. And I think Kenyans will better understand this clearly. It is not. It is the leadership, the minority and the majority, and their whips, who are supposed to ensure whenever there's something to be voted on, their members are there in their numbers. But you know, you have seen even sometimes when the majority, they don't organize themselves, they lose. It doesn't matter whether you like it as a Speaker. You may not even agree with what has happened, but you know, your business is to preside and announce who has won.
My original question was a concern by Kenyans that the legislature, which you lead as a speaker, has basically become an extension of the executive. Let me give you another incident where some say what exactly happened there. The passage of the contentious security laws, of course, but the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. We know a parliamentary committee, I believe composed of senators and MPs, retreated, came up with some recommendations to even amend that bill. But on the floor of the House, there was some sort of unanimity. Let the bill pass as is, which seems to really play into the wishes of the executive.
Well, is that really the business of the Speaker? When there is unanimity?
Is Parliament independent? The one that you oversee?
What did you see the other day when President Biden was calling his members of the Democratic Party? Because those are your foot soldiers. They may not all of them agree with you, but if you are able to convince the majority of them, they agree with you. If the executive and the opposition agree, now what would anybody want the Speaker to do? to go and start whipping them, or do what? So
is it fair to then say that Parliament has an oversight role?
Yes.
Because if what you're telling me this evening is true, then Parliament is a rubber stamp of the wishes of the executive.
Let me tell you how Parliament oversights. One of the key and the oldest oversight mechanisms is the committee system. And the oldest committees in any parliament, not just Kenya, the Public Accounts Committee, whose technical wing is the Auditor General's office. Those things, you go and read the reports in all those, of those committees. They will make recommendations, because that's what Parliament is supposed to do, make recommendations. As to how those recommendations are handled by the executive, that is a different matter. Because once Parliament has made these recommendations, the matter moves now to the implementing agencies. They could be even the EACC, they could be the DPP, they could be the DCI, or indeed the executive itself, or even the Treasury, for instance, where committees of Parliament point out something. They say, look, we allocated so much money to this particular agency, and this is the way they have spent it. We are not allocating anything. Now, the National Treasury would have to take action. But Parliament will deny those agencies, like happened recently. There are some who the monies were slashed from them, and Parliament say, no, we can't give you. That's how Parliament checks the executive. Parliament is not supposed to be also a hindrance to the executive. Where the executive proposes, Parliament has a responsibility to go deep, investigate, find out if what is being proposed makes sense or doesn't make sense. Parliament is not supposed to go. We are not in a fighting match. It's not a football match that this one must win and the other one must lose. No.
But it's also not meant to look as buddy as we have seen for the last couple of years.
Let me ask. Let me tell you, for instance. In this country, before the new constitution, we had ministers and assembly ministers in the House. Were those parliaments? Would we call those as parliaments?
I mean, not as well defined as we have under the 2010 constitution.
It's not separate. You see, this is a mistake. If it did, and we keep talking about the UK Parliament, one of the oldest. It's the oldest, actually. One of the oldest, not the oldest. There's like a small country which has an older one. But the ministers are there. And do we say are they separated, or are they not separated? So, we in this country sometimes get excited about, always, of course, about new things. Because the presidential system was exciting to us in 2010, we think that it is the best. How many countries in the world have presidential systems? The majority of the countries are actually parliamentary, which means the executive sits in the parliament. And I think it's fair for us as Kenyans to also appreciate these facts. And even when they sit there, it doesn't mean that they are supposed to agree with what has. Even though they may have proposed and agreed in cabinet, they will come in as cabinet. They will come and have their vote. But remember, there are also the backbenchers who are always the majority. In fact, if Parliament, as you say, was not doing its work, even some of the gains that remember we have done, even under the old constitution, like setting up of the Parliamentary Service Commission, which was, remember, it was opposed vehemently by the then leadership of the country. But nevertheless, we as backbenchers came and insisted, even though we belonged to the ruling party at that time, we insisted never.
And you raise valid points, but here's the reality on the ground. And even, today, if you look at social media, you'll see members of parliament coming out to really speak out against taxes, speak out against the high cost of goods, and yet they are the same members of parliament who allowed the Finance Act 2020 to go through. Can you see the confusion that Kenyans have, where on one hand, their legislators are complaining on social media about things that they have the power to change, stop, amend in the National Assembly?
It's a very interesting situation, Maura, and I'm sure you may have heard me lamenting from the chair.
I will also ask you whether you can do more than lament.
But I have no vote. I have no vote.
You have influence, which sometimes is greater than a vote.
Over members of parliament?
Yes, you do. They respect you.
It is true they respect me, but
they would listen to you.
But you see, I don't participate in the debates. They're the ones who debate, convince one another, and once they persuade each other, they will vote in whichever way they. But I remember on that day, I was urging members, please, you are passing the finance bill. How do I see so many of you walking out? Surely, what are you going to tell your electorate? You have done. Are you really going to own the decisions that are going to be carried out here?
16% increase on cooking oil.
But see, that's
touching other core products as well that Kenyans use on a daily basis.
As a speaker, that is the best I can do. After that, I leave it to the leadership of the parties. It is the whips. They're the ones who are supposed to go and tell their colleagues, please, we think what government is proposing here is not reasonable. We think we could change this from there to this other place. And I keep saying, let's not just keep, we are flogging this horse for too long, Same mwananchi, cost of cooking gas, fuel, every day. I mean, Maura.
You sound nearly frustrated.
It's a bit unfortunate because, you see, in this current situation, there's no minister in the house. And that's what I keep telling them, because I have the experience of the other system. If you are ministers and you're voting in this particular way, one perhaps would understand because of collective responsibility. But here, you are all like backbenchers, So each of you is representing the people. Remember, that's what Article 95 says. The National Assembly represents the people, and serves to protect their interests, So when you walk away, when these proposals are being made, surely, can you legitimately or validly say you are representing their interests?
Speaker, so you're telling Kenyans this evening that for the last 9 years you have been an observer of the perceived ills of Parliament with no power to stop or intervene in any way. That's what you're telling Kenyans tonight.
It is not that the Parliament has no power. But if members choose not to exercise that power, the Speaker can only watch because...
and you feel that's what they've done? They've chosen not to exercise the powers given in the 2010
From time to time, they do make very, very reasonable propositions. Like, if you remember, recently in the finance bill, they opposed the proposal to levy taxes on maize. I mean, maize meal flour and a few other items which are consumables by the ordinary folks. And I felt that they had done good to stand up against the National Treasury. But they also proposed other areas where the National Treasury could raise revenue. Remember, it's a very interesting situation in that, of course, members they go to Treasury They meet with the Treasury. They tell them, these are the things that you want. This is what the National Executive intends to implement. If you want these things implemented in your places, this is the way we are proposing to...
In your places, you mean in individual constituencies?
Yeah, of course they are.
So it's almost, I don't want to say blackmail, but it sounds...
No, it's not blackmail, but you see, it's a question of which one do you want? Is it,
if you want this in your constituency...
You want this, you say you want development, what kind of development? You want this to go into this, you want this to go to education, we have to pay for this, we have to do free education. All these things require to be financed. So the members are also in a very challenging and challenged position, because they have to balance as well. And
that balance is at the detriment of ordinary Kenyans.
Well, because the taxpayer is you and I. Yeah. You could be ordinary, you could be anything.
Yes.
But you are a taxpayer.
Okay, but you're different because you're then paid from those taxes. I'm not. But that's a story for another day, Honorable Speaker. And I want to talk a bit about the members that you've referenced quite a bit and the integrity of the House of Parliament. I want to refer you to allegations made by Gatundu South Member of Parliament Moses Kuria a few months back. He told the BBC that for as little as 10,000 Kenya shillings, members of Parliament are on the take of whoever wants to influence legislation and other decisions. Seemingly, Mr. Speaker, you're the head of a rotten house.
You know what?
It sounds like you agree with that?
You know what? I was just listening to what you were saying.
I have already asked my question.
Any member, including the member for Gatundu South, is at liberty to say what they do. But
so there could be truth to it.
Well, there could be. But remember, for me, I will only deal with the issues that concern the institution. Remember, I am on record as being the first speaker to ever invite the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to come to investigate Parliament when I had claims of false mileage and allowances. And among other things, to help me set up systems that were going to arrest those kind of situations. So when they say that they are paid, did you take 10,000?
As little as 10,000, $1,000, 100,000 Kenya shillings.
I had him make that allegation, but
yes.
Remember when I challenged him, what he said? He
said that it was not made on the floor of the House.
Yes. So
could you not have pushed him further on that?
You see, you cannot. I'm not. That's not a jury. He says that was not made on the floor of the House, and he was right about that. So the rules of the House are that you cannot punish a member for such allegations which are made out there. The bodies that are responsible, the ethics, the bodies that deal with the ethics, they're the ones who are supposed to go and deal with him. That please give us evidence of this. But anytime, even you remember those cases which were there about people being paid in toilets and things like those.
To change reports on sugar, for example.
The matter actually came before my Committee of Powers and Privileges, and we called the members who were making the allegations. They all flatly denied. They denied. I said, well, Parliament doesn't have the wherewithal to investigate, in greater detail than what we did, and therefore we just had to make our report. But I asked the EACC, please, because you have better tools to investigate these matters, find out whether there is any truth in these allegations.
And what would be your last few months as the Speaker of the 12th Parliament? Are you proud to be the Speaker of a Parliament where such things are possible?
Well, not that. Not. I cannot. There's nothing to make me regret my being head of the institution, because in any marketplace you'll always find some rotten eggs here and there. by and large, the majority of members are people of great integrity. In fact, that's why sometimes when some members hear these allegations being made, they will always come and raise the issues with me and say, this is very bad because I don't think I belong to that kind of institution. But you see, you are with some people, you don't know where people are elected from all manner of backgrounds, remember. And so you are sitting with them, they are saying, they're your colleagues, what do you do? They go and do all manner of things. I think, for me, the majority of my members are people of integrity.
Okay. I was going to read you some information from Asavi, but we can talk after that, after the break. I'm told we are due for another one. And I also need to read feedback, 22422, the SMS line. I'm seeing a lot of your messages. And the hashtag is Newsnight as well. Special edition of the program. We are live from the home of the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi. He's got a lot to say about the sort of the conduct of Parliament since he's been Speaker, the challenges of the separation of power between the executive and the legislature, and we're going to talk about his presidential bid on the other side of this break. We've got a lot more lined up, including this.